papersounds out of some scores and go through them with you guys. And so that was kind of fun, so I figured I might as well just do that again. So that's what I will do now. And so basically, in the last video, I talked about Bach and Mozart and then Beethoven. Arrived at the Pathetic Sonata, and then decided to end the video because it was getting a bit long, because I talked so much. But it's fine, because I kinda like whispering in ASMR videos. So, let's talk about the Pathetic Sonata now. The Pathetic Sonata by Beethoven is, to me, one of his best sonatas, one of the ones I like the most. It's relatively simple, it's relatively early on, and to me it is kind of the most complete sonata. So what do I mean by that? I feel like with sonatas a lot of the time I was very interested in the 11th and 17th etude, and I'm kind of just going through it right now, and I'm only now realizing that I have the complete etudes, so they're in there, and I was just looking at like, YouTube videos for the scores and stuff, and yeah, that's why I already played through the 11th etude, and started with the 17th one, and yeah, I have it in here. Oh my god, so this is so me, just overlooking super obvious stuff like that. So, minimalism. It's a very fascinating style to me. It's much different than, let's say, Chopin or maybe Schubert. Is another example. I always have to think of Mendelssohn. These are composers that tell like a story, right? Like romantic music, for example. So music from the romantic period. You have this is